again, everybody. This is Harry Carey. Watching a ball game really makes me hungry, and when I'm hungry, I can't help but think of the great Mexican foods made with La Preferida products. Just as a home run adds excitement to a baseball game, La Preferida sauces add excitement to your meal. If you want to hit a grand slam for your team, simply serve up a tasty dish made with La Preferida food. Holy cow, what a meal! Hello again, everybody.
I don't believe that's his kitchen.
Did he even have a kitchen? That is a
Sure, had a bar.
Yeah, he seems like this kind of dude who had a couple bars that knew what meal to serve him.
Yeah, which is what was essentially a cheeseburger.
I think he probably ate a lot of olives.
Yeah, it was a cheeseburger plain with just it was it plain cheeseburger, double cheeseburger. That's what he got every time. Bacon, no.
Maybe some onions.
Maybe some onions, yeah, but definitely some Miller Lights, 100%.
Okay.
I just thought that it was appropriate for Cinco de Mayo for people that celebrate that thing out there. So welcome to the Week 6 recap here of the Tiger Mountain Report podcast. As the Tigers are off tonight, as they start a 3-game series with Colorado starting tomorrow, as the Rockies come in with an ERA of 5.39. And I was told that, don't overlook teams. You're right. You don't want to overlook the Rockies, but the Rockies are atrocious. Like 1996 Tiger rotation bad kind of stuff. So we'll talk about the Tigers exercising the demons in Anaheim because, again, historically speaking, I'm not sure why the Tigers always play bad in Anaheim, but not this weekend. They were so much so that Riley Greene got the Player of the Week award. We also heard some wise words from Joe Madden about the Tigers too, which we'll play a little bit, as he was on MLB Now with Bob Costas. So Bob Costas talked about the Tigers, and he wasn't talking about the Yankees or something. So that's a nice change of pace a little bit. We'll be talking about Max Anderson, who also took home the Eastern League Player of the Month, and AFCL has started. So now we have officially 5 teams playing right now, currently. So there we go. But yeah, plenty to get to. But if you have a comment, a question, what have you, please send us a super chat question. Those are awesome. Eating a meal from Harry Carey could be your last. That's a good way to get there. Matt Wood says he has many leather-bound books in his apartment that smell of rich mahogany.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that.
His favorite was tomato soup, but served with various other implements included, The Bloody Mary breakfast.
Yeah, I was going to say the
60 years.
Yeah, he invented the Bloody Mary breakfast. You see those brunch places that have like the huge meat sticks and stuff like that with the hors d'oeuvres. But I don't know. I'm not a big Bloody Mary person at all.
I mean, I've had a few at certain points where I was like, "Oh, this isn't that bad," but yeah, I don't know.
I think they were.
I think people are fooling themselves a little bit with
the
Bloody Mary.
Only times I've had Bloody Marys are on a plane and like hair of the dog situation. Like,
yes,
wake
correct.
up at a casino and like, I need some sort of sustenance.
Yeah.
I need vitamins. Tomato juice. Yeah.
No, Jordan. Yeah, I didn't. Here's the situation tonight. As soon as I got off work, I went to do my evening walk, and as soon as I got back, sat on the couch, and I passed out. So I was gonna do the thumbnail that I usually do and prep the show, tell everybody if they have questions or anything like that, and I passed out because the last few nights with my allergies have been kicking my ass, and so like I just been out. So
something must be going around because I actually called into work today, which is pretty rare, especially on a Monday. I was just like, nope, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
These first 4 months have worn us out, I think.
Yeah. No, and all the excitement for the weekend, and maybe it's staying up all week. Weekend watching the Tigers play the Angels, and so let's talk about that. Let's talk about the barrage of home runs, and that's where I was kind of. I don't know about you guys, but the biggest thing I took away from this series weekend was because I think it was actually one of your staffers, Brandon, said something about he's like, well, where's this offense coming from? And the home run power, and we talked about Javi Baez at length. I wrote an article about him. You guys have done some stuff too as well. But yeah, I mean, they went out and punched the Angels in the mouth repeatedly, and the Angels are a team without Mike Trout. I mean, Zach Nato is the Tiger that should have been, as we all know, the scout, the draft stories and everything. For anybody that hasn't, who's new to this, allegedly the Tigers analytics folks wanted the Tigers to draft Zach Nato. The older guard was, the older guard being Avila and Chad and Littlefield wanted Young. And so they got the analytics folks got outvoted for that. So fun fact. I mean, allegedly, this is all.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we were all sitting there draft night, kind of just thinking like, oh, maybe we'll take Zach Neto, and then it went Young. And at the time, I didn't have like a massive preference. It just felt like similar players, except one's a shortstop. Both really scrappy, gritty type players. There were concerns that Nato wouldn't hit for any power. I remember at the time, of course, because he's a little guy. But, he's basically turning himself into some kind of a Dustin Pedroia type. And, I would much rather have him right now. But, water under the bridge.
Yeah, he was a small school guy, right? Campbell, which I think scared, Avila, those guys, they always took big conference players up top.
Yeah.
And he had a big leg kick. It was a kind of a funky operation. And I think he's largely gotten rid of that, which is kind of impressive that he's still performing well. And he's a real, I think, I know some Tigers fans who kind of hate him just because of, he's homers off Scooble, he's jawing at him, he's getting on base for the series. He's a good player. And that's fun. It's fun to have, natural rivalries occur because a good player gets the better of another good player, and then that good player gets it back. That's how it's supposed to be.
And we all gave him grief and whatever, but at the same time, like I like that in a young player. Like he's on a team that's really struggling. Nobody else is leading over there. Mike Trout is gone. You kind of figured they came into that game with some talk of like how tough Scooble was going to be. So, that's just a young player taking it upon himself to not be overwhelmed and say like, hey, we can beat this guy. Like, pull it together, and trying to be a little chippy with it and get a little bit of energy going on his side. So, no beef with it. Scooble's not the type to, be vengeful and throw 100 at your head the next time. He's mostly just going to laugh at you and enjoy the entire thing, which is exactly what he did. He thought it was hilarious. He was absolutely loving the smoke. So, and that's another reason to love Tarek Scooble, because he's all about that.
Yeah, and I don't mind that. I like when teams you need that more often. You really do. And the Tigers and Angels have a rich history of that, going back to Carlos Guillen and Jared Weaver, of course. It's just, to me, I just rather, I don't like just going through the motions. Then again, the unwritten rules I'm kind of always weird about, but people getting fired up, that stuff is cool, and that to me adds an element that definitely. Because no matter what you do, like if you play rec softball, if you play any sports growing up, you're always fired up to play against somebody, and you're playing at the highest level. Of course, you're gonna pimp out a home run. I'm not saying you got the best of the guy who just wants, exactly. There we go.
And I mean, we're Detroit sports fans. I mean, from being huge hockey fans and watching all through the '90s with the Lemieux saga, all that stuff. Two different kind of bad boys type squads with the Pistons. Like we're this is what we like.
Yeah,
we're Northerners. We like a little scrap.
We thrive in conflict.
Yeah, a little conflict is good. You don't want people getting hurt. You don't want people getting baseballs thrown at their heads. You don't want guys getting hurt in stupid ways, throwing punches on the field. But at the same time, I like it a little chippy. So yeah, I was perfectly happy with it.
So we're in agreement. They should trade for Zach Nato.
We should trade for Zach Nato. Yeah. I'll offer Jace Young and.
The one thing that always cracks me up is when the bench is clear. And then that was a very that's strange, the definition. But when the benches do clear and the bullpens come running in, I don't understand why they don't just turn and fight each other, right? It's like it's like those videos when two dogs are barking at each other between a fence, and then they realize they can actually see each other, like there's no wall there, and they just are like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Yep. They're just coming in like the backup dancers, like they both just go to their own sides and like get behind everybody.
It's one of those things where too, especially if they're coming, if the bullpens are running, then it's going to be full on. But if I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. If they're kind of jogging in, it's like, maybe.
Obligatory, we have to make a showing,
Yeah. But
We
they
gotta
come
stop by this
sprinting.
party before we go to our actual friend's house that we really want to stay at.
Yeah. Yeah, we're here because
It would look bad if we don't, if we don't come out. That's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're here so we don't get fined. Pulling a Lynch there. But let's start with. I want to start with Sunday's performance of Reese Olson, and there's always this. We're not going to nitpick too much because there's not really much nitpick. Of course, he's going out there doing what he after a long first inning where I believe he threw 27 pitches. He went out and settled down. Has that problem getting over the sixth inning. I know that Hinge is trying to get into that habit of doing that, but the bullpen was well rested and they did their thing. And Brisky coming back on Saturday was well timed because Tyler Owens wasn't going to be here this long anyway. And so I thought that he did a really good job bouncing back after the first inning, just throwing strikes and just, again, the slider, just the little mechanical changes he's making have been really impactful. And this is where you see, case in point, where on Saturday, for example, Flaherty losing a little bit of velocity, but Flaherty's still holding his own and everything. And it's not always about velocity, but if you can't locate, if you start getting that pitch up, and they're going to start, mashing, and that's the case what happened Saturday.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of saw it a couple of times. We saw it in the minor leagues too. We saw Melton kind of, run into some trouble the third time through the order. It was kind of a third time through the order type of series. Flaherty was kind of cruising along and doing fine, and then all of a sudden it kind of blows up in his face a little bit. Olson, it just always seems to come down to like how he's commanding his fastball, and if he comes out and he's a little bit shaky with that, teams can kind of work him a little bit. But once he locks that in and starts spotting the fastball a little bit, he's got the slider. He always seems to have the changeup now, at least so far this season, and that's just a huge equalizer for him. Whenever things get dicey, he can go to that the same way Flaherty can go to the knuckle curve to start throwing a ton of those. No one ever does anything against it. So, maybe a little bit of a young pitcher thing there, with Olson there, just still trying to figure out exactly how to hit the ground running in the start. Job has had the same problem. Montero has that problem, fairly consistently, where he comes out and his command is a little shaky, gets knocked around a little bit. And then all of a sudden, you look up and he's gone 4 innings, scoreless. So yeah, there's just little things there about, preparation probably and how to self-correct a little faster that needs to go on for all those guys. But yeah, we're really nitpicking. I mean, I wrote a whole giant article today about how all you can do is nitpick right now because it's just a weird position to be in where really there's nothing to complain about. They got rid of Kenta Maeda, Sweeney and Keith were struggling. They kind of pulled it together. It's just hard to find a whole lot to complain about right now. We're just kind of riding this wave, and I don't really want to shake the boat.
Yeah. I mean, it's going back to the where's this offense coming from? It does feel like the part of it feels a little fluky, just right. I mean, you're not going to count on Zach McKinstry to, hit prime Ben Zobrist for the entire year, but I mean, they were doing all this for the most part without Colt Keith doing anything. With Riley Greene kind of up and down, really. I mean, he was, 10 days ago, he was at a WRC plus under 100. Mm-hmm. And then, everybody woke up at once. Part of that is the Angels being terribly bad. But, I don't know. The Astros series was kind of annoying in that they kept, giving it up, especially with the bullpen. But they were still scoring runs, still battling. That's the one hallmark of the entire season is they keep battling. Even in that game against Hendricks, which was incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that guy's – if you throw 86 and you're in the league this long, then he knows what he's doing, right? But, yeah, it's just – everybody in the lineup right now can hurt you, and it's kind of hilarious. It all came together at once. Dingler hasn't walked yet, but it doesn't matter because he's hitting for a ton of power. Mm-hmm. Javi Baez is hitting. Sweeney always seems to know, every time you're like, I don't know, I don't think it's going to work, and then – 6 RBI game. You're like, all right, well, he's good for another 2 weeks. It's just a really fun offense right now, and then to go along with that outstanding pitching staff.
Yeah, even Tomas Nido comes up and this is a guy who's barely managed to crack the major leagues. He's such a good defensive catcher that if he could hit at all, he would have been up with a team, playing at least as the backup for a long time. And he has a 500 BABIP since he's been called up, and just everything is dropping for him. It's just all coming up aces for them in kind of ridiculous fashion right now. And, you think about all the things that could have happened with Meadows and Vierling gone. Then you lose Wenzel Perez, who was kind of the backup plan. You get Margot. He gets hurt right away. You lose your starting catcher. None of it matters. We're fine. They're just, it is just kind of been shocking. I mean, the Tigers right now are what, fifth? Yeah, fifth in home runs. And I don't think the Tigers have been, in the top 15 in quite a while that I can remember. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think they have been. And this is the part of the season where the Tigers usually don't hit for much power because it's colder. And so, they're just off to this monster start. Spencer Torkelson, I think, is third in the league in home runs right now. So they're hitting for power. We knew they would pitch well. And they got rid of, kind of that one arm that they couldn't really carry anymore in Maeda. And right now, we talked about this last time. This is sort of like when the season becomes a real grind. Like the next 10 weeks until the All-Star break, there isn't much to break things up. There aren't that many off days. It's just, this is kind of when you really get into it. There's often a lot of injury. And so far, they've just been grinding teams up.
Knocking on wood there for that injury portion of it. I mean, not to be super superstitious, if you will. Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't say that word.
So somebody in our Discord pointed out that the Tigers might be the first team this year with 3 players with double-digit home runs. It's kind of between them and the Dodgers. You got Torque with 10 and Greene and Carpenter with 8. The Dodgers have Ohtani and Teoscar Hernandez with 9 and Tommy Edman with 8. So it's going to be close.
Tommy Edman just got hurt.
Well, there we go.
It's going to have to be Freddie Freeman.
Yeah.
Who did homer tonight.
And here's another thing, too, about the double-digit side of things for home runs. The Tigers really, probably in the last 5 years, really have not, as far as just like you look at guys who have done the double-digit thing, it's barely, it doesn't happen. It's not to say it doesn't happen, but the Tigers, it's usually one guy. It's usually a kind of a thing where Torkelson in the year he had 30 home runs, and whatever. Did somebody else had 20, right? At least, Carpenter did. Yeah, that was it. I mean, but it doesn't. I mean, it's one of those. They might possibly have up to 4 double digit. I mean, look, there might be at least 320 home run guys, and I'm trying to think of the last time the Tigers did that.
Probably about a decade ago, probably.
Yeah, I think we looked into that, and it was like JD and Miggy and
maybe 2015, Upton 2016, something like that. Yeah, Upton, I believe it was that year.
Upton here.
Up in here. So.
Yeah, and another thing that I've kind of been paying attention to, because last year they had that pattern where it seemed like they struggled a lot with starting pitching. Like they would get out to a slow start, and then they would come roaring back against other teams' bullpen. And so far this year, they've been swinging a little earlier, it seems to me, and having a little bit better game plan coming right out of the gate against opposing starters. And the Astros and the Angels series both had like examples where they just could not solve the starter, even seeing him 2 or 3 times. Hendricks being the main example, but then they just lit up the bullpen either way. So even on the rare occasion where they did look a little bit, like Tigers teams of years past, in the end they figured it out and just started mashing. I mean, the inning on Friday is just one of the craziest things you'll ever see. Yeah. Can't even really categorize that. For Riley Greene to be the first player in Major League history to have 2 home runs in a 9th inning, like it's just another example of how you think you have seen it all, and baseball will just always have these other things. There was a play not long ago where was it Torkelson who threw to second trying to get the lead runner, and it skipped off the guy's shoulder and went right to Sweeney, I think, at shortstop. Yeah. Like you just, baseball just is an unyielding supply of weird shit happening sometimes.
Well, that's, speaking of weird shit, that stat right there, Jake just said 2021, Grossman had 20, he had 23 home runs, Scope had 22, and Eric Haas had 22.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, but that's just, I mean, and Miguel Cabrera was not too far behind with 15. So it's just, but that's, I don't even forget. It's like, thank you, Jake. That's a reminder of that. But then again, it's also like, well, let's see, Eric Haas batted 231, and what was it? I'm trying to look here. Oh yeah, and that was the Candelario led the league in doubles with 42.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's the thing. So
that memory went away. Yeah, and the thing is, if you look at where the Tigers are right now, it's a hot start, and you just want to push it as far as you can. But the Tigers, if they play 500 baseball the rest of the way, I think they end up with 87 wins, one of the two. So, I mean, I feel pretty good about that. It just seems like with a rotation this good and with plenty of depth behind it, it's going to be really hard for the Tigers to go into any, huge losing streaks. But again, knock on wood, you just never know what can happen in terms of injury. Maybe everyone's hot at the same time, and so this year they all go in a funk at the same time. I don't know. I'm stretching here. I'm stretching with my fan brain for things to worry about. But yeah, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better start. I mean, that's pretty simply what it comes down to.
Basically, there's not been guys hitting home runs double digits this early in the season. Okay, now we're like, well, remember 2023? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, no. I mean, they're hitting for, like Brandon said, they're top 5 in home runs. Like, they're hitting for a lot more power than I think anybody expected that they have in a long time. And that's a huge part of today's game. You got to hit home runs. We talked about it at the very beginning of the season, right, when they basically outplayed the Dodgers for 3 games, but lost all 3 of them because the Dodgers hit home runs and the Tigers didn't. And this is coming with Torque kind of calming down and becoming the Torque from 2 years ago, which is just fine. That's all we should ask for. But if Greene's going to wake up, and if Carpenter's going to wake up, and if Keith's going to wake up, and Sweety's going to hit some home runs, and Dingler's going to hit some home runs, and Javi's going to hit some home runs, and like there's not a real weak spot in the lineup. It's which is kind of hilarious to say.
Gleyber Torres has been really dependable.
Gleyber Torres, he's been very good. So and Parker Meadows is going to come back at some point. Vierling's on his way back. It's going to suddenly be a pretty deep lineup.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's not a weak spot to go at the moment right now, too. I mean, even as Stan mentions just now, the weather's not even warming up yet. There's a very fierce debate going on here in the chat. Harris versus Avila, and look, I'm just gonna this. Okay, I feel like all right. I like the debate, all right, but let's just.
It is a fun debate.
It's a fun debate, but let's say let's settle this once and for all. You know what? I'm gonna put the chat on the side so that way I can totally focus on this right now without looking at the chat right now.
I just, know what?
Go ahead.
You go ahead. You are going to say something, yeah.
All right. Well, let's all make our points here, okay? Al Avila hired these people. He hired Ryan Garco. He hired the analytics department. He also promoted some people. That's all true. There's no doubt. He drafted some of these people. All that is true. No doubt. Okay. But the changes started happening in developing this talent. What they had, Carpenter started seeing a baseball swing person that's known for being the air judge guy. Same thing with Jake Rogers. In terms of like nutrition, the psychology, all that stuff, the dorms, the covers down in Lakeland was all Harris. But as far as player development goes, until you hire Ryan Garco, and after Avila left, that's when. Because the fact that Chris and I have talked to numerous players, we've talked to numerous people down there. Same thing with you, Brandon. Things started happening after Avila left. Avila did bring in these people. It's not, you can't dispute that whatsoever. That being said, you can't also discredit him either. At the same time, as far as bringing in talent in since the 70s, you got to do some of that talent. And now the Latin talent, and this is something that we're seeing now with some of the Latin talent, they're starting to get some pitchers now and that's something that Avila did not do. I'm sorry. There's no evidence to support that whatsoever. Montero did not get better until he got instructions in Spanish. Avila is a Cuban American like myself and did not have player profiles in Spanish. For God's sakes, man. You can only, to me, it's common sense. If I speak Spanish and I can't read English, you would think that'd be accommodating. And that didn't happen until after he left. So,
I still try to think of an industry in which like 30% of your workforce would speak a different language, and it wasn't like, and it's not mandatory or at least encouraged that management would all, at least be, conversationally confident in Spanish. I don't know. I've just always thought this is a weird thing about baseball in general. But I think I just wanted to take that debate a different way, because it's not that Al Avila doesn't deserve some credit, but I don't care that much about credit. I care about, was Al Avila a good GM? And on the whole, he was not. He never found any players. He didn't make too many successful trades until the very end. Yes, he pulled Reese Olson for, Daniel Norris, which is, in terms of, value is a monstrous trade. Can't ding him there. But look at the first 5 or 6 years. Nothing was happening. The farm system wasn't improving. They were drafting these guys. They weren't getting any better. They were just kind of sending them out there to play. There were so many things that were like just like criminal practically in terms of how bad they were. They were so far behind the curve. And the problem with Al Avila was that maybe if Al Avila became a GM in 2010, like he would have had a nice window where he was like still, kind of up to speed. But the fact is 2015, when StatCast kicked in, just erupted in terms of like the amount of data and the amount of, analysts you'd need, all this kind of different stuff to develop your players the best and to outdraft other teams. And they were way behind the curve. And he was the main force, along with, his boys up there, in slowing that down. Some of his assistant GMs tried to push that, toward him. I wrote a million articles about how, hey, maybe you should go poach some people from the Dodgers, the Rays, all these teams that were obviously much more successful than you. He didn't do any of those things. He sat on his ass until AJ Hinch fell into his lap. And I will give him credit because he did the right thing and hired AJ Hinch. But all this stems to me from AJ Hinch, from Garco and Hinch being Stanford guys, to Hinch hiring Chris Fetter and being able to get Chris Fetter to come here where other teams had tried to lure Chris Fetter from the college game and couldn't get him. It just all stems from AJ. Even hiring Harris stems from AJ. I wouldn't be surprised if Al Avila getting fired kind of stems from AJ. This is my perspective on what's gone behind the scenes, because even now the two main decision makers in the entire Tigers organization are Scott Harris and AJ Hinch. And if people don't think AJ Hinch doesn't have a direct line to Illich and to Harris, and those two are talking these things through every night, that's where the decision making all happens on this. They have plenty of other smart people advising them. Garco's done a great job. Metzler's done a good job. Connor, all these guys are doing their jobs well, but that is the fundamental pairing that has made this all possible. And you didn't see, you saw Chris Fetter being a good pitching coach and developing some guys that you wouldn't expect, to develop. I mean, they got like solid work out of freaking Willie Peralta and Drew Verhagen for decent stretches, which would have seemed impossible under anyone else. But it wasn't until Harris like really dialed in the analytics too and got that department and their communication set up between the coaching staff, between the players at a much higher level, that you saw something like an analyst figuring out that, hey, maybe Tarek Skubal should throw this, funky ass changeup grip and use more of a seam shifted style changeup. That came from Harris's front office, like specifically Harris's analytical side, and then passed down. And of course, you have the coaches to implement that stuff. You have the coaches who can explain and get buy-in from these players on all these things they're doing, like platooning, putting up with the fact that you're going to be on the bench some days. I mean, just all that stuff. So look, if you want to, if it's important to you to give Al Avila some credit for whatever reason, that's fine. It's not like he was a complete, debacle and a moron. He was hired by Dave Dombrowski and worked for Dave Dombrowski for years. I know Al Avila is a smart baseball man. He was just the absolute wrong baseball man at that specific time when Mike Ilitch decided to fire Dave Dombrowski, because the sport was changing rapidly. Al Avila was an old school guy, and it left us, 4 or 5 years in the dust until he got to Hinch, who got to Garco, and and brought in Fetter, and then got to Harris. And at that point, I mean, you can't really argue with the results of having not got a lot better. All these players that didn't, it wasn't just that they didn't develop well, it's that you could tell that they didn't really have like a plan, like things that were obvious that a pitcher needed to do. They wouldn't even be trying to do it. They'd just be throwing fastball, whatever they always had. There just wasn't any emphasis in like, you've got to make the changes that we want you to make. And if you suck for a while, that's okay. But we just want you to do the thing, and we don't care about the results. I never saw that under Avila. And all these things have just been, transformative in the Tigers culture from top to bottom.
Sorry, there was a net flying around here. Yeah, if you, I'll allow that Al Avila maybe was thrust into a situation that wasn't the best, right? Like I think he came out and said afterward that if he could do it again, he would have started the rebuild like immediately instead of trying to compete for another 2 years and then kind of panicking and selling JD for nothing and getting rid of Verlander and all that stuff. But in I know this is a fallacious argument. I know it is. I don't know which fallacy it is. But if Al Avila was so good and such a great GM and did such a great job, and he spent 30 years in baseball, why has he not been hired anywhere in the last 2.5 years? He's been out of work the entire time. He's got tons of friends and connections in baseball, and he's not working in baseball. What is it? Is it is it they don't want to pay him, or is it that they don't really think that he's going to offer all that much? And again, that's a fallacy. Maybe it's nothing at all. Maybe he's had offers and he doesn't want to work. But
yeah, he's an older man. He might just be retired.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's
Transition.
knocking down Al Avila's door to make him their head of scouting or head of drafting or head of anything, because
Nope.
he's, there's a reputation inside the game, and for all the solid work he's done in the past, it's kind of overlooked now. So, or not overlooked, but not really respected anymore. So there's that.
Yeah, there is. I mean, in the last thing we'll say about it, and then we'll move on because there's some good questions that came in there about Dingler in the chat, is simply this. I look at it as if some of you said, Brandon, about Hinch. Going down there, it is a different environment when you're going down in the tunnels. When you start working, look, I don't get paid to be a beat writer. We don't get paid a lot. We get paid by people donating, so we always thank you for that. But going down there, when Avila was there, comparatively speaking to Hinch, in the tunnels, I always see Harris with the backpack walking around the tunnels. Avila and Hinch, it was like they barely even acknowledge each other. They barely talk to each other. You always see those two talking, Harris and Hinch, all the time. So until I started going down there and seeing things from behind the scenes a little bit, from what perspective I could see, that's when it made me realize, like, the communication's night and day. Even at the end of the season press conference, those two are in sync. Those are they're in shot. They're in total communication all the time.
Yeah.
And so that right there,
they're probably sitting up at night like we are watching the minor leagues.
Yeah, that's what
AJ knows who everybody is.
Yeah. Harris told us that. I mean, when he basically told us that essentially that he does what we do all the time, and so I mean, he knows who Troy Melton is. He knows, and another thing too is, I look at Brant Herter as an example. Brant Herter is a prime example of this. Brant Herter was a two pitcher guy tops when he got to Erie. They worked on him. They worked on getting him a changeup. They changed his mechanics, and he's become a guy out of the bullpen. They made guys, and you can't tell me they ever did that with Avila. They never, they never did that with guys like that. They took Sawyer Gibson Long, a guy who Avila traded for, and changed his K per 9 by 2 in one season. By 2. That is what he did. Like, if you think about that in the grand scheme of things, I don't know what Jeff Greenberg does, Stan, so I don't know. And he didn't really come to the board until last year. But Sawyer Gibson Long's K per 9 got better by 2 in one season, in less than a season. That is, to me, that's all you need to know about this.
Yeah, I mean, we could find a million examples. I can bury Al Avila if I just want to drone on and on about this all day. But, I mean, one last point is what happened at the beginning of 2021. Everybody knows, probably out there. But, yeah, I mean, the Ilitch family basically got together and said, like, okay, Al, you're not making any more decisions without, AJ's approval and Menzies' approval. And we're going to have a little triumvirate here. So he was already, being stripped of power, by that point in time. You can look back to 2015 and like the situation there, and it wasn't ideal. And DD made a bunch of dumb decisions like the Alfredo Simon trade, and and Ilitch kind of getting them to sign Justin Upton instead of signing like 3 just average players, which is probably what they needed, guys who could run. But he had freaking 7 years, and there wasn't that much to show for it in terms of what the talent that they got turned out to be. And in terms of, how they ran the organization during those years, hiring Ron Gardenhire. I mean, I don't even want to do anymore because I'm just getting mad. Yeah.
And he brings up the Harris drafts. He's only had 2 drafts so far. All right, let's move on, please. Cause I rather, there's so many other things to go on.
Just like, right now. I'm like, okay, you want some of this? I got plenty. All right.
Who cares about Jaden Ham or
Max Anderson's not doing pretty well or anything like that. Look, again, I respect people's opinion. Let's move on. What about Max Anderson or
no? I'm just saying, it's 2 years, and who knows? Maybe none of these guys will work out 3 or 4 years down the road. Baseball moves in glacial terms, so we won't know for sure. But I'm not upset about what's been going on with the Tigers over the last 3 years.
I was talking about Harris's 2 drafts here in Detroit right now. So Walter, by the way, was on hand at the game on he was there on Thursday. So you got to tell us how that stadium is. In Anaheim, I've always wanted to go there because I've always been curious about that stadium in general. It's been around for a long time, and that was the Tigers, by the way, set a new record for most runs scored on Sunday with their 13 runs, and they broke the 1999 Tigers, which had 12 runs, and that was Juan Encarnacion going off for 5 RBIs. Dean Palmer, man, that 99, that was my senior year in high school. That team, that was like, I thought that team was turning the corner. Like, oh yeah, they're gonna be ready for Comerica Park. Yeah, so bad off. Man, did I know nothing about baseball. But Briseño, by the way, also made swing changes in the offseason that made him better. Anyway, so let's see here. So the Tigers right now, let's talk about the 3 games they have going on before we get to the minor leagues. They are taking on the Rockies, and so do you guys have any pluses about or any positive things to say about the Rockies at all that maybe?
They exist as a baseball franchise.
I know that
have a lot.
They have the cheapest beer in baseball, I believe. It's like $3 a beer in Colorado compared to like 15 in Washington.
Their park is cool.
Yeah, and people go there no matter what, even though their team is terrible.
Yeah.
Chase Dollander has some really fun stuff. It's tough being a good pitcher in Colorado no matter what. It'll be interesting to see him and Job go, toe to toe. Because that's a couple big fastballs and some interesting breaking balls, and they're probably both going to get rocked because it's Colorado.
Yeah.
I like Pinstripes, Deadly Ninja Bees. I do, yeah. And Jake brings up the good point here about what you just said about Dollander versus Job.
Yeah, I mean, Tovar was kind of fun, but he swings at everything. Zach Veen came up, and then they sent him back down. They don't really know what they're doing.
No,
they like. It's just a bad situation there where they'll bring prospects up, but then if they don't perform, they send them right back down, like they're trying to compete or something. Like it's.
Yeah, they don't know what they're doing. It's it's like a mom and pop run organization. It's like the dad and his kids trying to be GMs and player execs, and it's just a goddamn disaster over there.
It does. It feels a little bit like the William Clay Ford Lions. Like just me and my buddies and doing things that I like.
Just the good old boys. No, I like Hunter Goodman too. The guy's the first.
Yeah.
I feel like he's like a future Tiger because he can play multiple positions and.
I remember him. He had a 4 home run game in college, I think.
Oh yeah,
I remember that. I'm like, whoa.
And he did come out really hot this year. Yeah. I remember seeing there was a lot of hype right away, but of course he's presumably cooled. Yeah, it looks like he has cooled right down. But yeah, a guy who can catch and play outfield a little bit.
Yeah,
you can do a little of both. The Tigers like a guy like that. One of the things I noticed this week too is that when you look through the catching, obviously Dylan Dingler's like right up at the top. Having a massive year behind the plate, of course, as you'd expect, but also hitting the crap out of the ball. But then you look at it's Carson Kelly right there. And how much better did Carson Kelly get with the Tigers?
Yeah.
Ever since Carson Kelly was with the Tigers, all of a sudden he hits now, and his framing got a lot better, and his blocking is better. So.
And also because I think he's healthy too. Considering, I think he had a broken wrist in Arizona, or like he had some sort of wrist issue where he wasn't allowing him to kind of generate the power he was trying to get. But that Cubs team is, when the Tigers play the Cubs, that to me is going to be the most intriguing series of the year, because I feel like that those are two teams that, World Series aspirations is, as early as to say that, but it's, can you imagine the world if there's a Cubs Tigers World Series?
Oh wow, yeah.
It's feeling 84-ish.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Outside of that, the Angels, they were involved in 84, weren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, except the Angel, or was it the Padres should not have no business on paper, the Padres should not be in the 84 Cubs.
Yeah, who did
the Cubs had Rick Sutcliffe. That was their big ace.
Was it the Royals that the Tigers beat in the first?
Yeah, in 84,
okay. Yeah. Well, the Royals are good this year too. Yeah. It's really annoying what the Royals and Guardians are doing, because they're both at like 20 wins now, and they should both be at like 15 wins.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah, the run differential of the Guardians is the same as the White Sox, I believe, or something to that effect, and that's just mystifying, especially too with all their injuries to their rotation, the Cleveland's rotation. You have Class A not being the Class A of last year, so and the Royals, I'm not really. It's I think Jake says it best. Guardians are fake. I'm not concerned.
I mean, I tend to agree too. I actually think maybe the Royals are a little bit more built to hold up, but they don't, outside of Witt, it's not like, there's a team that really scares you either. I love Reagan's. I like Lugo and what they've done with him and what Lugo's done for himself over the past 2 years, really kind of transformed himself. And, when you look at it though, it just feels like a bit of a changing of the guard, just because, the East doesn't look that good and the West doesn't look that good. The Astros are a good team, but they're not a juggernaut. Now you see like Seattle's out to a hot start, and the Blue Jays and the Orioles, who every year people pick to win things, are doing nothing. So
I'm guilty of it. I pick Toronto every year and never do anything.
I know, it just never happens, right?
And here's the thing too. Like, yeah, Kevin brings up Jose Ramirez, who had a rare feat. 250 home runs and 250 steals.
Yeah.
Cool. Kevin, I don't like I respect the hell out of that guy. Jose Ramirez is doing that in Cleveland. I mean, like, nothing but respect for him. It's just he can do that all the time. The Royals do scare me a little bit. Not the AAA affiliate. Omaha's terrible, horrible. But they have that Jack Caglione. That guy's a beast.
Yeah,
but they have the pitching, right? Like, their pitching is legit. And the Tigers handle them for the most part, but those are good arms. So, I don't know. I'm not too worried about it, given the way the Tigers are playing and the way they look and the way they've, theoretically what they have on the horizon. But still, it's annoying to see the other teams nipping at your heels.
And it is early. I mean, your baseball team is a lot different in August than it is in April, May. So maybe things will look a lot different. I don't really see where either the Guardians or the Royals really have the firepower to change their roster significantly or make some kind of a huge deal. So I kind of think they sort of are what they are, and probably that's the same with us. But I mean, I think the Tigers are pretty thoroughly deeper in just about every way to both teams. But you just can't count the Guardians out because their front office too. We talk about what the Tigers front office and with Hinch and everything is turning into. The Guardians have been that, for a decade. And there've been so many years where I looked at that roster and was just like, how the fuck are they doing this? Yeah. And they just keep doing it. So, and they got a new manager and they did it again. So you have to respect it, I guess.
Yeah. The Royals, well, Jake says the Royals have lost to the Tigers having AAA. Yeah, if they're ready to play, but I also think of it as like what could have been, should have been kind of thing too, because I mean, there's more. No, you know what, Jake's not right, Jake's right. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of veteran cast-off 4A players down there with a couple of prospects, but I mean, what concerns me about but they don't have the pitching. The Royals do. The Royals don't have that pitching down there. Outside of they have more guys in AA that maybe a guy like. Like Henry Williams, for example, maybe come to mind, but a lot of their pitching prospects are more like AA and below. So yeah, Harold Castro's bad and cleanup on Omaha. That's not going to cut it for anybody.
They have a crazy speedster down low A right now, but not terribly worried about him right now. He's got 30 steals in 20 games. 30 steal.
Yeah,
and he's hitting 400, I think.
And it just goes to, I mean, if we're worried about like what kind of depth do those other teams have? I mean, we've got Sawyer Gibson Long, we've got Kiter Montero. Over the course of a season, not right away, obviously with Gibson Long, but maybe they have Alex Cobb, maybe one of Melton or Ham, probably more likely Melton right now gets it going. I feel a little bit better. I just feel better about the Tigers' options, just about up and down the board. Even Dietrich Enns might be useful for a starter.
Matt Sillinger out of the bullpen. I'm on the Sillinger. Stan sent me a text earlier about Matt Sillinger coming out on Ducks. And I just did Colin, one of our writers, is doing a piece on him, doing kind of those video breakdowns we're doing, which you can find on our YouTube channel, by the way. We just did one on Dylan Smith, and Dylan Smith's coming along really nicely. Doing on Max Anderson. So there is I think the Tigers are setting themselves up well for the second half of the season, in which I think they position themselves to make a move. If they will make a move, I think they will. They need to get another swing and miss guy, maybe out of the bullpen. Whatever the case may be. So let's look at what's going on in the world of the minor leagues. As by the way, Jackson Jobe has graduated, so we're going to be doing our mid-May prospect updates. So I did the tease of who's going to be the number one. Of course, everybody thinks it's going to be Kevin McGonigal, and probably, maybe, more than likely, I don't know. But there's no foregone conclusion because he's only played one game this year.
Yeah, that's kind of tough. And somebody else was like, you mean other than Max Clark? And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, Clark is certainly, putting up numbers, and he's stayed healthy, right? Which you can't say for everybody else. It's I don't know.
Do you have any concerns? Any concerns about Max Clark?
I'm not gonna get into it again like every week.
And Chris Brown presents the Max Clark Hour.
No, but like I mean, there are legitimate options right now. Like I think you could make the argument for Bryce Rayner. It's very early, but if you wanted to, you could say that guy has the highest ceiling of anybody in the system, and it's not a hard argument to make. It's just that's not necessarily how we roll. But we'll figure it out. We'll do it like we normally do through a democratic process, and putting marbles in a jar and so forth and so on. Yeah.
By the way, everybody there's Max Clark, soft contact. My God, man, the guy's hitting and getting on base. I don't know what else people want. I know they want Wyatt Lanford, who of course, Mike Valenti said that on the ticket today. Of course, that was going to happen. The ticket's gonna find something. We got to find a weakness in the arbor. We got to find a chink in the armor. Mm-hmm. Imagine if we had him right now, 248-539.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to sit back and enjoy it. That's where we are. It doesn't get a whole lot better than this, folks.
Gentlemen, everybody who's in I love the chat tonight. I really do. The chat all day. I love the chat. They're in first place. They have the best record in the American League. Drink it and enjoy it. I'm not going to nitpick all this.
Yeah.
All right? Max Clark, if he ends up like Stephen Kwan, Walter, I'll take that all day. A guy that annoys the hell out of you by getting on base and hitting everywhere, fine by me.
Plays good defense, steals bases. That's okay.
This team does need a right-handed power bat. We've all discussed that before. That being said,
Javi.
There we go.
Torkelson. Yeah.
Torkelson, Javi.
Yeah.
We haven't needed one. No, we haven't needed Alex Bregman, I have to admit, and I am very surprised.
Yeah. Although if you ask Ben Verlander.
I'd still like him, but
and Steven, thank you. Erie and West Michigan are in first place. I don't know what else you more can ask for.
Yep.
So
Lakeland's been playing better too.
They're tied for first now.
So Colin said that Rico said the Lions should consider releasing Jared Goff at the 2025 season.
I don't know.
You know what? I'm just thank you for listening. Thank you for watching us. We just appreciate it.
It's slow right now. Slow right now out there for football.
I just don't. I'm in a good mood, and I'm not going to be in a bad mood. I'm saying, like, I'm in a good mood. Let's just keep going. Let's keep going with the Weber report here, as the Mud Hens have won 10 out of the last 12 and have looked pretty good doing that by playing Gabe Alvarez baseball, which is just good pitching and good, really clutch hitting. And this is with Hailey struggling. I mean, he is struggling badly, folks. So he's at that 32% whiff rate, which is no bueno.
That's on fastballs 92 miles an hour and harder.
Yeah. So that's not good. And really it's like one of those things, but and Larry, I know the comment section's having fun. I'm enjoying it though. I'm enjoying it. That's what I'm saying. I'm really having a good time with it. Seriously, it's fun. But I see certain things in the chat going, I'm gonna avoid the I just want to avoid getting angry. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, look at the Mud Hens. They're 3 games back of 500. This is a team that was, to me, dead in the water 3 weeks ago. There's just a team that was not fun to watch. And you get a guy like Montero back, and Wilco Hernandez is quietly having a good year. Yeah, I know we're still on the fence whether he's going to be something or not, but I was talking to Colin about this a couple days ago. There is adjustment with ball when it comes to the actual baseball grips in the actual baseballs in AAA. So you have more of a softer grip in AA versus a harder grip in your AAA baseball is your Major League Baseball. So the fact that Wilco is already adjusting to that is a good thing. I mean, there is an adjustment to it because the way you grip things on a softer ball is much easier to manipulate and you take shape of things. But when you have a Major League Baseball, it's going to take a minute. And the fact that he's doing that right now is a good thing. And I really like watching Toledo, especially in these close games. They play Worcester, I don't know how you say it. Worcester.
Worcester.
Worcester. Sorry, Worcester. Worcester. There we go. I just know I'm saying the accent wrong. At any rate, that's a good offensive team, and they were able to go 4-2 against them.
Yeah, it was the best offensive team.
Yeah, I mean, they outpitched the heck of them. You know, you look, I mean, you've got Roman Anthony, for God's sakes. You look down, you know, there's a lot of recognizable names in that lineup. So
Marcelo Meyer, yeah.
Marcelo Meyer, yeah.
The guy that everybody wanted instead of Job. Yeah, I you know, they are playing better. Like you mentioned, Blazovic is not giving up a run since the first game of the year. Sealinger is another Rod Special who's out there striking out everybody. Matt Manning is walking everybody for some reason. I don't know what's going on there. We'll just ignore it. But yeah, I mean, it's you know, they're doing it with these, you know, kind of, for lack of a better term, 4A players with Badu and Jones and Kreidler. But it still is fun to watch Akil Badu hit the ever-loving crap out of a ball. Like, I don't know if people saw the home run that he hit that was 461 feet, but it was absurd.
Yeah,
it was like, it looked like kind of, you know, a home run to center, and then you see it land like 50 feet beyond the batter's eye. You're like, oh my God.
Yep. That was destroyed.
That was fun. And then I got to give credit to Jet 2, who in the Discord said, they said somebody mentioned Jack Dunn retired. He spelled it Jack Done, which is that's the sort of pun that you can expect in our Discord.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you know, I thought the Hens bullpen was really good. I mean, they got some rough starts. Obviously, Lockhart didn't do real well. Yeah, so it wasn't like a perfect week for the pitching staff, but they just seem to get it done with the bullpen just about every time. PJ Poulon has been pretty impressive. Yeah, there's been a bunch.
And there's a question in there. Who's this Nick M guy on Toledo? It's Nick Margavicius.
Yeah.
Is it Nick?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the new guy. That's the new guy that Tiger signed from. He was originally, I believe, he was out of the he was with the drafted by the Padres, right? And then he
7th rounder by the Padres in 2017. And I think Mark Connor was probably he was Mark Connor was the
oh yeah.
I
didn't think about that.
Yeah. Good call there, Chris.
And you know, he's a soft tossing lefty who made it up to the big leagues for a little while, and there's nothing particularly special there, but he probably will be fine in AAA and probably pretty good. He's kind of an export Carlos Pena.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, Andrew Chafin signed with the Nationals, but we saw that coming, and based off some of the comments we saw on Discord too, he didn't really want to be here anymore. So yeah. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, that was either way. It's just good to see they play Iowa. I hope they come home to play Iowa. I will be there this week at some point too with the Cubs coming back into town, and this will be a different. They already took on the Cubs already, and I think this will be a different tune this time around. That's for sure. Let's move on to Erie, and I know people want to talk about bated breath with Max Anderson being the Eastern League Player of the Month. And he will definitely be moving up some prospect lists. Again, our list, probably. Everybody else's list, MLB Pipeline does things a little differently. I don't know about you guys, Brandon, but I feel like there's not a lot of movement on some of these lists because they don't see as much as we do. So, but Max Anderson definitely, and Roberto Campos, who's starting to get the ball in the air, folks. That's a development. Just saying, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, he's putting up really good numbers. Actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, though, not to contradict you right here, but I think Campos actually is hitting a ton of ground balls, but he's pulling the fly balls when he is. When he is getting it, you know, to the pull field, it's in the air.
Yes,
and suddenly you're starting to see, you know, a good deal more power. He is still. It feels like an adjustment period is going on because he is beating a lot of balls in the ground. But yeah, he's gotten off some really good swings and started to crank the ball to the fence and over it a little bit more, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it. Thank you.
And he's still really young. You know, he's young for that level still.
It's not just all ground balls, but he is trying to get it at least to where you can start seeing it getting lifted to left field, especially when he did that double, I think it was Saturday or it was a Friday or Saturday. He hit one right off the wall. It was a rocket right off the wall.
Yeah. And
he's come along really nicely too.
He's also walking. He's also walking a ton, which I think might be like the other sign that things are in process for him, where he's really looking for specific pitches to do specific things with, and just being more selective, which I think is a really good sign for him. He's 22. When does he turn 23? Oh, he doesn't even. He's not even 20. Yeah, he's not even 22 yet.
Yeah, there we go.
Next month, I think. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff there that's not going to last. He's not going to post a 450 BABIP for the rest of the year. But like you said, he is walking. I do think that it's kind of it's an adjustment period. He's been punching the ball the other way a little. But yeah, I think if and when he gets comfortable and starts pulling the ball in the air a little bit more, then he could be really fun. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue about a guy just like with Clark. If you're gonna hit for a high average and walk a ton, it's hard to get too upset about it. It's just
Yeah.
who you are right now probably won't get you to the big leagues. There's got to be some more work done. But yeah, and Anderson, I don't know. I don't know how much Anderson will move up on my list. Not to poison the well here. He's certainly, I think we had him like 30th. So he's going to move up from that for sure because he's performing in Double A. But there's still, like, all the questions I had about him before are still kind of there, right? Like, he doesn't walk. It's still kind of opposite field heavy. He's pulling the ball more. There's, the defensive value is still probably going to be, he may be average at best. So it's, I don't know. I hate to be the negative one all the time, but like, yeah, it's like he's got a chance to be maybe an average big leaguer, which is fine. That's like Jason Young level, like as a prospect, like, maybe 8th to 10th in the system, which is fine. Yeah. I just, I don't know if he's going to move in the top 5 or anything like that.
Yeah, and I mean, he does have a lot of raw power, which kind of gives him like that little bit of juice underneath. Like when things are going good for him and he's making adjustments, it's going to look pretty impressive. We'll just have to see if he gets to that, because there is like a point there where he has the kind of raw power that Torkelson has that not too many guys in the Tigers have outside of Riley and maybe Javi. Where you do see the 111s and 110s popping up a little more often than just about anybody else. So
yeah,
there's a little bit of like juice there. Is all I would say. Like I have some of the similar concerns, but if he puts it together, he could be a really, really impressive power hitter for them. He might be kind of a free swinger who's like a low average guy, but it starts to sound like I'm describing Spencer Torkelson with maybe less plate discipline. So there's at least like a world where something like that is possible. What did you guys think about what Jake is saying there too? Because I mean, we talked about this last year. Anderson in campus being at West Michigan and having trouble getting the ball out of the park sometimes, whereas Erie a little bit more favorable.
Well, I was just going to bring that up because I think that, I mean, if he's so far they played in Harrisburg, and Harrisburg is well, their left field's pretty spacious, but I mean, as far as like everywhere else goes, I think that does benefit them. I think it's benefited them quite a bit because, I mean, you look at center field at UM or at LMCU, that is a cavern. I mean, it was a massive place to hit home runs right now. Although West Michigan's just like, you know what? No, screw that. This year they're outfield. They're one of their better Aprils in terms of home runs for the month, which we'll get to a little later. But I think it does help him quite a bit. I mean, if you look at right field too for Max Anderson when he goes opposite field, I mean, when he just literally sometimes it just seems like he just pokes it and whoop, it goes out under the jet stream. Yeah. And so, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to use that exact phrase. There is a bit of a jet stream to right center and at UPMC where kind of to where the scoreboard is. Yeah, and that's like right in Max Anderson's wheelhouse. Yeah. But he did, he hit home runs to left in Harrisburg, I think, and
one at left center. I think he had left one Erie too, I believe.
Yeah, and probably one to center. Right? Like, I'm sure that it helps a little bit, but you still got to hit the ball hard and hit it in the air against better pitching than you saw last year. So I'm not gonna ding him too much for that. Like, maybe it's not totally real. He's not going to hit 25 homers this year, but it's in there. We know that. And if he keeps advancing like he has, or at least improving, then he's going to move up lists.
Yeah.
Whereas our boy Tyron is, learning about upper level pitching and seeing a better class of fastball breaker combo and striking out quite a bit, which I don't think is particularly surprising. Like this felt like, not like they necessarily rushed him, but that this would be a move that would take some time for him. He pretty much just spat on everything last year that wasn't kind of right in his wheelhouse and destroyed everything that was. And it's just going to be a little bit more of a complicated process. And obviously he's got work to do with his catching, more so than a lot of the other guys in the, around the lineup have to work and worry about. So he's got a lot on his plate right now, and it's kind of looked like it. He's been kind of off his game and striking out quite a bit. But when he does get a pitch he likes, he's still killing it, and he's still kind of on track, walking a lot to be my Alex Avila prototype. So
Yeah, no,
I'm not really losing any faith at all, but it hasn't been, it's just been kind of the struggle you might expect for a player moving up at his age.
yeah, especially too when you're working on your defense. And there was a big thing about that where the fact that here he is trying to adjust at a different level, but it is a lot to think about. I mean, you're at the most important position in the diamond. If you think about it, you're commanding your pitching staff. I mean, some of these guys call their own game, even regardless. It's still, you're relaying signals. You're doing a lot of these things, and you're trying to get better. He has an arm. We know that he has an arm, but framing those things there's a lot to that. And the weather also too in Erie has been crap. I mean, they had 2 rainouts back to back.
That's true.
And so weird. Yeah, it's been the whole adjustment there is there with that. But even that, I will say, we got to give props to Edward Valencia, who's done a really good job of being a good backup catcher, good solid veteran backup catcher. He's very able to provide some relief back there. But a guy who I don't think is going to be hanging out in Double-A much longer is Trey Cruz. I think that Trey Cruz is ready to move on. I mean, the WRC plus right there, as Chris pointed out here, but a guy who can play multiple positions. He's been there forever. Let's move him on, shall we? Let's do that. Let's, Jack Dunn retiring. I know that Jake mentioned that possibly with another call up there. I forgot the exact way you phrased it, but
Mendoza's already up there, so they think he might just stick there.
Yeah, well, and if Mendoza moved up, though, it does feel like maybe Cruz would move up too. Once they kind of get like their outfield, the Tigers get their outfield back together, maybe they'll worry less about having like a 4A guy like Hicklin or someone available. And at that point, maybe there's a little bit more space for Trey Cruz to move up. I mean, I think there's a world in which Trey Cruz might come up and like be a useful 26 man on the bench, here and there. But, he doesn't really seem to have much to offer as far as like a major league future. But, at the Double-A level for him to come back and just rake like this, like there just isn't anything left for him to do there.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him move up, and I'd like to see him kind of be the utility guy running all over the place and maybe taking like Kreidler's spot as far as like, trying to have a guy who can just kind of do it all. So
yeah. We'll I mean, the reason why I'm saying this is because I think it's not his choice. He wants to be in Erie. I mean, I think just because they're doing all the veterans and what have you. And so, but if Jack Dunn's retiring and how long these other guys are going to stay up there, at some point you're going to start seeing some movement. But one guy who continues to pitch well, and this is the debate among us, is Garrett Burhan, whether he's going to be a bullpen guy or starter guy. Whatever the case may be, he's still pitching very well. Outside of it's been him and Melton kind of really hold down the rotation. The most important thing I've noticed about Burhan this year is he's limiting his walks. And that's something that I was looking out for, especially also the big thing too is how is he getting against right-handed pitchers, because the split last year was not very favorable to him. And again, it's really early and you're looking at that. And those are the two things I'm looking at. Is is he keeping down the walks? Is he limiting right-handed power? And so that's where that's kind of the two avenues I'm looking at or the two stats I'm looking at for him, because if he could do that, that makes him more interesting in a sense, because he has a really good slider. The guy has a very good slider. One to me, I think we made him our best slider in the system, right, Chris?
I believe so. Yeah, it was either him or I think I did put him number one because Job's sweeper at the time was not working.
Yeah. But Burhan is, again, he's a very intriguing prospect, and if he can continue to limit the damage, I'm trying to find the split right-handers, and I can't, for whatever reason, just...
I would think it would be left-handers that were bothering him, right?
Oh, sorry, lefty. I'm sorry, lefties. Yeah, lefties, not right. Yeah, lefties.
And as myself, I kind of think, like, at best, he's probably a reliever, so he's probably going to get used against right-handers anyway, so maybe it doesn't matter that much.
Yeah.
But, he's got to be able to hold his own, at least against lefties, because, we're watching the three-pack theory of lineup construction and bullpen management these days. And you do have to at least be able to hold your own, because opposing managers will try their best to set things up where they can at least get one opposite-handed hitter against you.
Yeah, so as of right now, he's got a 487 OPS against right-handed hitters with 10 strikeouts and no walks. And against lefties, it's an 801 OPS with 5 walks and 13 strikeouts. 2 doubles, 3 triples, and a homer. Mm-hmm. So the lefties are still giving him trouble.
Steven, there's a certain thing about age. He's 25. you can't help but where you guys get drafted. The guy was a 4-year senior, so I mean, the age certain plays a factor on certain things, granted, but the
The
Tigers
fact
are
that he
also,
missed, I mean, the thing about Cruz is that he missed so much time. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the only reason why I don't really have him as a prospect anymore either. He's kind
Yeah.
of a finished product, but we're still going to talk about him because he could be a guy that ends up playing for the Tigers a little bit somewhere here or there.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Nobody's trying to tell you he's going to, he's going to seize a long-term role or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, again, is it between injuries, what have you, and he also has, and like his parents are. I mean, look at his family. So I mean, his grandfather was
future coach probably. Yeah.
Yeah. His father was a coach at Rice. I mean, there's a pedigree to it, and he's, like I said, I think is he a dude? I don't know, but I know he's a player, and so whatever role the Tigers have for him, either way, let's move on from that. But yeah, Jake Miller. The good news about that is injuries. Nothing. What was it? Who Emily that told us there wasn't really anything concerning with that, right, Chris?
Yeah, it sounds like it was relatively minor, just a little tweak.
That's
the old tweak.
Yeah, hate those tweaks.
Yeah, and here's the most important thing in West Michigan. There's still no word on McGonigal. They have a really good matchup this week with Lansing. That's always a fun series, no matter if it's in Lansing or West Michigan. That's another one if you're going to go out to the ballpark this week.
And they're 1 and 2 in the standings.
Yeah, exactly. And the A's have a very good farm system, and they have a very good they have a good Lansing. It's a very good team this year. So teams are avoiding Briseño, and this is a team that's like in terms of mashing the ball. They in terms of like month of April, we're hitting home runs like crazy. This is a team that normally struggles with that. Brent Callahan's come back down the earth a little bit. It was 1 for 21 in the Wisconsin series.
Yeah.
I mean, we did our video about him, and it's a swing that's going to be very streaky, just the way he swings.
He's looking at damage for the most part. Yeah.
Let's see here. I'm gonna make sure I zoom this in as much as. Oops, I zoomed this in too much. Oops, I moved it. I zoomed it in too much. I'll try to zoom in on the McGonigal portion of it right here. Let's see here. Sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna highlight this. Still no word on McGonigal.
Yeah.
Still no update.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks.
I mean,
but again, that's kind of how they are now, right? Like you wouldn't get an update. We don't expect updates. They just show up again, like, "Oh, I'm good." And you're like, "Oh, what happened to you? Where have you been?"
That's what the way they operate. It's a Steve Yzerman operation kind of thing, because Yzerman doesn't tell you anything either.
Yeah,
that's just the way it is. So we too, I like to think that there's a possibility they might have with the even Lakeland. Lakeland's still intriguing too from getting to the playoffs, but definitely could see 3 teams get in the playoffs. Isaac Pacheco is coming in his own a little bit. He's been hitting the ball a little harder, coming back from injury. This is a guy who I think we've talked about this make or break kind of thing, but he's been performing better. But the pitching staff, gentlemen, this is West Michigan. We knew that they were going to be good. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize their bullpen would be this good in their rotation. I mean, Jordan Marks.
I know. Jordan Marks. Yeah.
I mean,
yep.
No, it was interesting. They were kind of lucky to get a split this week because, and they never seem to play well in Wisconsin for whatever reason. Maybe it's because they're always going there on like week 2 of a 2-week road trip. But they were not scoring like they had earlier in the year. They just 20 runs this week, so a little over 3 per game, where they had been averaging like 6.5 a game. And most of their starters blew it this week. Sears and Castillo didn't get out of the first inning, or couldn't get back into the second inning. And yet they still managed to pull it out in large part, like you said, because some of those bullpen arms we talk about, Micah Ashman, Jordan Marks, and Preston Howie have all been really good.
Yeah, Howie. Yeah.
And I put a slash there instead of a period, but you he was it's a 0.69 ERA for Howie so far this year. So I mean they and teams are learning to pitch around Briseño now.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because Clark and Stevenson are on base in front of him like all the time, but if they don't get on, they're basically not giving Briseño anything to hit. Like even if they don't have to, if the bases aren't loaded, they're not throwing him strikes. And he's swinging earlier than he did last year, and so the average isn't there quite yet. But he's taking tons of walks and he's hitting for power, and I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where if they had decided him, to just make him a first baseman and give up on the catching, we'd be screaming at him to move to Erie probably.
Yeah.
But he does need to work, behind the plate, and so he's just going to have to adapt to being like, college Spencer Torkelson down there, and take everything that isn't kind of in his wheelhouse and do damage where he can. Because it really did look like they just wanted nothing to do with him the whole series.
Yeah.
Man. It must be that really good player in Wisconsin named Matthew Wood. Yes.
Yes.
The dangerous Matthew Wood.
Yeah, Matthew Wood. And here's the thing too. Another Joe Miller had a really good start, and Chris, I like the way you clipped together his last strikeout where he was just like pumped.
Yeah, he was screaming. I meant to get that whole start. I don't think Joe Miller's necessarily anything, going forward. It's like 90, 91.
He's a little older now too.
Yeah.
But he did have a great start, and I like to, highlight that when those guys do it. And yeah, that was fun. Like to see him, he let out a Scooble scream.
Yeah.
Which is, when you get the Scooble scream, you got to put it out there.
I mean, I keep waiting for Marco Jimenez to throw more strikes and stuff, and and then I remind myself again, like, he's 25.
Yeah.
Like,
it's 25.
It seems like I've had this thought for a couple of years in a row now.
Yeah. Same thing with Trevor Michael. Like I thought he'd be in Erie by now, and he's not.
I think he has been in Erie and then came back. It's one of those things.
But it is kind of just like this interesting mishmash of pitchers with, Sirwood down there, and he finally had a rough outing, which we hadn't really seen yet. But yeah, I mean, Ashman just continues to just eat everyone's lunch. Castillo and Marcano, my two little sinker baller boys, didn't have the best of weeks. Colin Fields is sort of their cleanup man, who's generally pretty effective, and so there isn't like a whole lot to get excited about prospect wise in terms of pitching. But as far as like a high pitching staff, they have a lot of versatility and weapons, it seems like, and are deploying them pretty well even when the starters go bad. So
speaking of Ashman, by the way,
they should be able to hold up.
Micaiah Ashman, we have him on our Patreon for paid folks. So that we're not putting on YouTube. So if you want to see us breaking down Ashman, please join our Patreon on Tigers. Go to patreon.com/Tiger Minor League Report. And like I said, Colin's gonna be doing some video breakdowns. Ashley's doing some draft stuff right now. I'm so stoked for that. But yeah. So and one last thing about West Michigan before we move on to Lakeland. Yeah, they're also run differential too. They lead the Midwest League, and same thing with Erie, I believe, as well. Both lead in the Tigers. So what they all have in common, they all lead in run differential. So there you go.
Yeah,
that's a pretty cool stat. Moving on to Lakeland, who cleaned up against Daytona and Palm Beach. It was funny too, because Friday, Chris, I thought it was a typo because I'm like, wait, what? They're playing two teams in 1 week?
No, you discovered that. I didn't know that. I had no idea. Yeah. That was weird.
Every night I look at the schedule, like before I write up the team results. So I kind of saw it coming, but it was just sort of an odd setup because 3 away and then 3 at home against Palm Beach, who was the big rival last year. Not quite the same situation, so far this season. But then now they're going back out to Bradenton for a week. So they're basically like 9 road games with 3 home games on the weekend in between, which is kind of. I don't know why, but okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I think they're on the road again the following week. So they better have like a huge homestand in this first half.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're right. Huh. Yeah, they go to Clearwater too. Oh, and then they're at home against Fort Myers, and then another like split week. So there are some split weeks coming up. I don't know. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, Lakeland Lakeland's tied for first. So that's actually technically there's 3 teams going strong there. So speaking of Strong, Jackson Strong coming back after getting hit in the head and had a monster home run in Daytona, which was like was it center field? I believe it was.
We had to rely on his dad to show it to us.
Thank you, Mr. Strong.
There's nothing good in Daytona. It's
nope.
They're in the before times.
Yeah.
No cameras, no StatCast, no nothing.
No, yeah. I don't know what's going on over there. Lakeland also too, funky bullpen, but it works. Like they have a really a series of intriguing arms. Woody Hayden with his first professional home run, he had a grand slam.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. Good seeing him too. He did a really good job of playing center field in Strong's absence. I thought that just showing his position versatility. Chad Pennington, well, the former Jets quarterback. Woo! Garrett Pennington having a really good, strong week, too. But Monty, Chris, talk about Monty a little bit, because this is a guy who yeah, go ahead.
We've talked about Frenier Bermontia quite a bit, but it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, who are you thinking of?
Never mind. Monty, I like the way you abbreviated. That's all. It just took me a second to realize. Yeah.
That's the nickname. But yeah. I feel like he's getting a little overlooked because Bryce Rayner is hitting everything 1 billion miles an hour.
Yeah.
But Montilla, he started the season like 0 for 8, and since then he's hitting like 320. There's not much power there yet, but he does hit the ball hard. He's consistently putting up triple digit. First card out tomorrow. What is?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Colin, as far as like Gabriel Reyes starting in complex, the only thing that I heard was, the only thing we heard was that he might have like needed some extra time to get in shape. That was it. That was the only thing we heard. He wasn't injured or anything like that, but it was very quiet on what happened there. But I'm just glad he's back because he pitched well. Go ahead, Chris, as you were saying.
Oh no, I just Montilla, he's hitting over 300, walking a lot, stealing a ton of bases, playing solid defense up the middle. It's like he's a really exciting prospect that I think gets a little overshadowed.
Yeah.
Because he's barely 20. He's same age as like McGonigal, Briseño, and Clark, and he's a little level behind them, but he's playing really well now. And like I said, just a little bit more power, and he's like a complete player.
Yeah, and in terms of power, meaning pulling it in the air, because he is hitting the ball hard a lot. I mean, there was a lot of 102 to 107 line drives, over the last month. So, yeah, he's pounding the ball. He doesn't have quite the big tools that Rayner has, but yeah, people, I agree, should be pretty interested in him. Really smooth defender too. Yeah, still rushes sometimes and will make a bad throw. We saw that from Rayner a little bit too, just kind of not timing things and taking the step when they could. But I like Montilla quite a bit too. I have to agree. He's a fun player to watch. Really smooth swinger, pretty good approach for his age, especially. And it's just neat to have kind of such a dynamic duo up the middle most days for them.
Quick twitch. And he reminds me of Javier Baez, a young Javier Baez. What I mean by that is just like the way he's so smooth in the infield sometimes. Like he does move a little too fast. You know what I mean? Like he does the rushing, rushing the throws.
Yeah, it's fairly common among young infielders, right? Like they tend to, if it's a crazy play, they'll make it and your jaw will drop, and then there's like a routine grounder and they wing it 8 feet over the first baseman's head because they just kind of half-ass the throw.
Right, a little too much style over substance occasionally.
But we've talked a bunch about it, and it's not just like the results; it's the energy he plays with, and like he's just a really fun baseball player, and I'm hoping that he continues this because I think people, he deserves more recognition. But
and he'll push it on the base pass too. So you like that. He's got a little bit of Carlos Mendoza, like I'm going to irritate you, dance off the bases quite a bit, can steal, goes first to third well. Yeah.
He's fun to watch. He is absolute joy to watch, and watch him his enthusiasm for the game too. It's like really fun. The FCL Tigers are, like I said, they're in action. DSL had their Tiger Cup, so we stumbled upon across this where DSL 1 and DSL 2 Tigers were playing against each other, and they're playing for a trophy that was sitting behind the backstop. It was just really cool to see. Chris and I were. It was like Thursday or Friday. I think I sent you. I can't remember if I sent you the link or not, Brandon. But anyways, it was just like this random ass trophy sitting there on a table, like one of those like rec league tables or whatever, and it was just chilling back there. But Jude Warwick, who we saw in. He got into spring? He got in the spring lineup, right? But did he play?
He was on the roster card one day.
Yeah,
but he never got into a game. We did see him in the Bridge League bootleg feed last year, and also in the extended spring bootleg feed earlier this year. And he's a guy that just has intrigued me because he's a high school player that they signed in the 12th round. Who looks athletic and fast and kind of has good bat speed. It's I think there's probably going to be a lot of strikeouts, and who knows what's going to happen there. But it's just kind of a fun, like just the sort of player that they never used to get, right? Like
he's from the Midwest too, which is like another thing too that blows my mind.
Yeah, he's from Downers Grove, which is I think there was another prospect who came from there from the first round. But it's like, you know, he's the sort of player who could have gone to college and been like a top 3 or 4 round pick if everything broke right in a couple of years, and the Tigers just got him before that. Now, who knows what's going to happen? But it's just, I don't know. I'm excited to watch him play, and then, you know, some of the other young guys on that team are coming up for the first time. Jose Dixon and Jesus Pinto are two of the bigger names from the international class a couple of years ago. And,
Yep.
you know, it's
Scheffelbein.
early, right? It's super early. Yeah, and yeah, Ethan Scheffelbein is really fun to watch. I want to see him pitch. I thought he might have been in Lakeland, but he's incredibly young. He's not even 19 yet, I don't think.
Yeah, he's even younger than Hall, but
Yeah.
but you would hope, you know, to kind of see him dial it in based on the reputation as more of a command guy and get to Lakeland here fairly shortly.
Yeah, him and you know, Antonio Florado, is that the guy who saw that
No,
was hitting 97?
no, I don't think we got to see Florido or Yeah, we saw. I mean, we saw Salcedo before. We put one of his starts up, and he's a fun guy who's in the mid-90s.
I was just talking about who's the guy that we saw the other last week that we're like, wow, who's the guy that started? I was like, whoa.
That was Wilberth Mendez.
Yeah, Mendez. Yeah, Mendez. Yeah.
But we did see Eric Felix pitch after that, and he was the guy that was throwing. He was throwing a little bit harder than Mendez, but I didn't particularly care for his breaking ball. It was like a mid-70s curve, but apparently the Yankees didn't care for it either.
Yeah, he owned them. Yeah.
7 strikeouts in 4 innings is pretty eye-popping. So, you know, just some fun arms down there. Yeah, and we haven't seen that Wilberth Mendez pitch yet. And I don't know. They play tomorrow. I don't think we get to see them on the bootleg feed until Friday, but we do get to see them, so that's fun.
But and this, I mean, there just is a nice crop of talent there. Like we already know that. We've kind of referred in the offseason a little bit to this sort of stockpile of talent below, you know, the low A level, and you're seeing some of those guys here. But yeah, there's plenty. There's just a lot of arms. They've got plenty of toolsy hitters that are down there.
Yeah.
Should be kind of an interesting couple rosters to follow. And oh, you know who I wanted to mention though? We skipped through in Lakeland because I had a whole bunch of people really mad about me mentioning that, you know, Patrick Lee got moved back down maybe so that he could kind of start more of a natural progression this year after kind of just getting signed and, you know, like, okay, play at Lakeland, play at West Michigan, play at Erie as an indie ball guy. But he did, I should mention that he did hit a 112 mile per hour home run last week.
Yes, he did.
And he, what else did he do? He threw a guy out at home plate because he has an absolute cannon of an arm, and he now has 10 stolen bases. So, you know, I mean, it's a monstrous tool set. It really is.
No, and when we talked to him too, we interviewed him, and he just a really nice guy, just a really just. Like,
that was a good interview. Yeah, I saw that one.
Like and the thing is too, and we're talking to. I know he was kind of upset that he was down there, but at the same time, how you say natural progression makes a lot of sense. But I think one of the things about Lee that stands out to me is his speed. Like he doesn't look. It's not to say he doesn't look fast, but it's just he's a guy who uses his speed differently. You know what I mean? Like he's just like it's like because he's such a bulky dude. Like you don't expect that kind of. But sneaky speed to him, but. The arm, like I said, last year watching him, there's 2 throws from left field when we watched him live in Lansing. I was just like, holy shit, like damn, like just this came up out of nowhere and like he just gunned him down this guy at second. And I mean, you know the left field corner right there in Lansing is kind of like a weird caveat to play because it's like the big wall over there, and he played it off the wall. And Matt makes up a good point. I want to go hunt with Patrick Lee because he's talked about how he likes to go hunting and so
absolute country boy on the RV,
country boy,
fishing, hunting. He does sound like a fun dude. For sure.
Yeah. But no, I'm glad that thank you for bringing back up Brandon. This is a guy who should not be overlooked, and we have him on I think number 35, 36 on our list. Something like that.
I have him way down at the bottom as well, just because I mean you just don't know what to expect because he's never faced any of this level of pitching. And they probably could have put him at West Michigan, but then you've got Callahan, Clark, and Stevenson there kind of in the way. And I kind of feel like that's probably what's going on here is that they just kind of decided like, okay, this guy he has a lot of tools. Maybe we just give him kind of like we start him back at the beginning here and just work him forward this year and actually treat him like a prospect rather than just like a dude that we just signed and we're like, we can just plug him in and play anywhere. But I don't know if he'll make enough contact to get to that power. But if he does, he could be kind of a shocking breakout type prospect in another couple months or a year.
Yeah, he's a fun player, and we also I didn't mention Carson Rucker, who's really fighting it down there. Like he's a guy that he was barely played for 2 years, right? So I don't expect a ton from him, but I do wonder if eventually they'll send him back to the complex league for a little bit, just to feel some success, go down there and get some hits and feel like you're doing something because sometimes that actually works really well. Like the Blue Jays did it with Arjun Nimala last year. He was struggling like crazy. They sent him down. He came back up, and he was solid. And now he's tearing up high A. So
sometimes you just need to get your feet under you and get a little confidence going before. It can when it gets into your head a little bit, going down a level makes sense. So, and we've seen the Tigers. If people are kind of looking for a protocol that the Tigers seem to have, it's leaving you at a level or dropping you to a level when they want you to accomplish one specific thing. And then once you do that, maybe you will move up. And Troy Melton is probably in that place right now. But they need to see a little bit more command of the secondary pitches. And if they get that, maybe then he's in Toledo right away, and it might just happen quickly, regardless of the results. Like there's a specific process that they want to see these guys following to develop a specific tool set, and when they see that, that might be it, even if the results on paper aren't necessarily eye popping or anything like that. So, which I think is a good thing. Using those levels, not like like giving out gold stars and stickers like, oh, you've been promoted or, oh, you've been demoted. But it's just, like trying to, when a guy is going good, you want to move him to the next level and challenge him. And when he's struggling and you're trying to get him to work on something, backing off a little bit and just giving them a little more of a breather without people, freaking out like, oh my God, this guy got demoted. It's over,
No, that's a good call.
It's not the Army,
Yeah, and it's a good call, and that's where the team that does the big league level too, and like putting Baez in 8th or 9th spot for positions to succeed. And so you have to, anyway, they're always going to be, that's why you don't look beyond the stat line. Like, for example, saying something like, oh, I don't know, let's see here. He was struggling off the gate, and, after a slow start getting off the gate, now he's been hitting better as of late. Did you not take account that he did get hit in the head?
Yeah.
I was referring to a certain 97.1 personality who tweeted out something that was like, "Dude, come on."
Yeah, we didn't really talk about Rayner, which is unusual because he's very fun. But yeah,
all we do is talk about how hard he hits in the air, guys. That's all we do.
Well, he hits it hard on the ground too.
Why can't he pull the ball? He did pull one, but it wasn't a real double. It was just a solid fly ball that dropped in. Like, all right,
that was funny. Yeah, well, any. Yeah, people are going to complain about everything, but like he did strike out more this week, and from my eye, and we only got to see 3 games, right? Because the stupid Daytona, you have a racetrack, but you don't have a damn. Anyway,
good spring break apparently.
It seemed like teams were really throwing pitches, basically, targeting him with breaking balls and changeups below the zone, and he was expanding a little bit, which was the kind of the crazy thing the week before was like, wait a minute, this dude is not expanding at all. He's crushing the ball. Yep. So he's got some work to do, and he's not going to be perfect, right? This is still, we're talking like what, less than 20 games in a pro career.
Yeah,
but it's good to see something where like, hey, he can work on that, and hopefully we can follow his progress over the next couple of weeks and see that he has, and then you go, all right, what's next?
And he does like to extend his arms. So, pitching him down in a way makes a lot of sense because he's already kind of like oriented to look that way a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, you'd think they'd fish out there. And then when that stops working, maybe somebody will try to just start pounding him inside. And that's when we'll see if he can turn on more pitches and drive the ball to the pull field a little bit. But the conversations we're having about him after literally a month of pro ball are pretty fun. It's just like, oh man, this kid is good. So.
And he's not in complex ball, folks. He's in Lakeland. That's a good thing. That's a really good thing. So we talked about Job and Chase Hollander pitching on Tuesday, tomorrow's matchup. Wednesday is Mize going for his 6th win on the season, which is really weird to me. Like, just he's already going for, I mean, wins in the grand scheme of things, but against Kyle Freeland, and then on Thursday, sometimes I'll watch the game with Jason Benetti, but then sometimes I listen to the game with Dan Dickerson because if I'm in here, I don't have my TV in here anymore. So the TV is on the living room, and so I'll watch the game and I'll hear Benetti in the background, but I'll have Dickerson on, and Dickerson was talking about the weather accurate. I forgot what app he was talking about, but him and Bobby Scales were talking about weather apps, and he said more than likely the Wednesday's game is supposed to be rained out.
Yeah, it's looking like rain for most of Tuesday and Wednesday in Colorado, so we could see another Montero start.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. So more than likely that would be the case. And so, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with either. I love Jason Benetti. I love the Dirks combination. Danielle Bruce has been really a good addition too, but give some props to Bobby Scales, man.
Yeah.
Him and Dan Dickerson have a really good rapport together, and they're talking about a gargoyle on his shoulder. And it was great. It was great to hear it. And I don't know, those two really feed off each other, and it's a fantastic listen. We're spoiled as all hell.
Yeah.
That we have this, So
I've interviewed Andy in the past, like honestly, like 9 years ago, and I'm kind of shocked at just how funny and engaging he is with Benetti. Like the way the two of them play off each other, I just would not have foreseen. And when I just want to chill and vibe out and watch the game with those guys, it's a blast. And then if I'm kind of more in my head and thinking about things, I'd rather hear Dickerson and Scales kind of like overanalyze every single tiny detail to death. But you can pick your poison. You can have either one, and it's pretty great. So yeah, we're lucky right now.
We're very lucky. It's we don't get that very often too. And if you want to go with George Blaha with the Pistons, and then Miller with the Lions too, it's the same thing. So, but either way, it's good stuff. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening this afternoon or even wherever you're listening to. And Tyler leaving us with I was tuning the Diamonds broadcast tonight. It was like hard to watch because the commentator was like listening to us.
Here's Mannequin.
Yeah,
there are some rough ones around for sure. We are in a really, really good place. To have the team be this good, the farm system be this good, the long term and short term outlooks both like this, and two really good broadcast teams. So you can kind of customize your experience when they don't stick a goddamn game on Apple or some goddamn thing in the middle of the week. I'm not expecting it.
Yes. And that's going to happen because the Tigers are getting more national attention now. And by the way, shout out to former Tiger reliever Charlie Forbush, who I had a really good conversation with. I'm working with him on a potential deal for my day job. And we had, it was one of the funniest conversations I've had in a long time because we dropped our professional side. We talked in baseball, and it was funny. And I wanted to give him some props. He said he would come on the podcast. He's trying to host some podcast in Seattle right now, and he's been doing some color commentary too. So Charlie's great. It was cool hearing him talk some baseball the other day, and so.
Sounds like he's also the world's foremost collector of Charlie Furbush jokes, actually. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes. He goes, we're mentioning like the Discord, and he's like, so let me guess, Fister for Furbush. And I'm like, yeah. So, being self-aware like that is fun. But, again, thanks so much for watching. Thank you for listening. And go check out everything over at blessyouboys.com or check out our stuff over also as well at Tiger. Do both. You know what? Have one on one browser, have one on the other. There you go. Yeah. There is a great discussion board on Bless You Boys that it's always engaging. And then, of course, TigersMLReport.com. Emily's coming out with the West Michigan Notebook tomorrow morning. That'll be out. 5 things you need to know every Friday with Joe. And I'm doing a piece. I did a piece on Javier Baez, the change in swing mechanics and all that stuff. I did that last week. Check it out on our website.
Yeah, that was good.
Thank you. And if you want to go to our Patreon, subscribe to that. There's a free subscribe. And then, of course, the paid version, which gets you some stuff from Jerry and Chris. We got draft stuff coming up. All sorts of fun stuff. So until then, keep it close, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Have a good night. Do, 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 do.